The following is from the Agency for Instructional Technology, AIT.
Choosing the dimensions of his drawing and deciding how to break up the space in his picture, Paul uses the principles of design to create a pleasing, well-balanced picture. In this program, he will outline these principles of design.
In this unfinished sketch, let me call your attention to what we call the elements of design. The elements of design are the same as the elements of drawing, meaning they are the things in a picture that you can see. They are such as line. See the lines? Shape, direction, size. Some are larger than others. And value or tone, you can see in here. Texture, and if we had color, color. Now those are the things we can see. But in today's program, we're going to be concerned with the principles of design. And the principles of design means the way we apply these elements, the way we combine them, the way we arrange these elements to get a composition that we want. And we might mention here one of the elements is balance. We like to balance a picture. And if I have an imaginary line coming down through my picture here, I want the elements on this side to balance the elements on that side. That doesn't mean that they're exactly the same, but that we have a balance of elements. And there's different ways of doing that, as we will see. Repetition, an important principle of design. And here you can see repetition used in direction. It can be applied to all the elements, but here it's direction, it's applied to shape, and it's applied to size in some cases because some are the same size, but some are not. You also see the repetition over here in the roadway going up to the top of the castle, that there's a repetition, almost a repetition of every other line going up here. There's repetition up here at the top, and then there's repetition of shape and repetition of line back here in the village. Now the principle of gradation refers to the change of size of objects in a picture. On the left-hand side you can see the large tree, and as we go toward the center of the picture, the trees become smaller. So they change size, and there's a gradation there. There's also a gradation in the mountain. See the converging lines up to the castle? There's a gradation in tone there and in value. Up at the top, the furthest away, you can see that the values or the tones are very light. And as we move down to the base of that mountain, they darken. So there is a gradation of tone. Dominance is an important principle of design, but you have to be careful working with it. In this picture, you can see the dominant is the castle up at the top. It becomes dominant first because of its location, but you only want one dominant in any picture, and the rest should be subdominant. So that is the one thing that doesn't repeat itself as the other principles do. But you can see how the lines lead up at the sides of the mountain, and then its location, and it's supported by a subdominant, which would be the moon or the sun. But remember, only one dominant. The principle of harmony and the principle of contrast can be seen in this sketch. First, let's look at the principle of contrast. On the left side of your picture, you see the trees. They change in size, but they contrast with the horizon, the eye level. Down where you see the village and the road going around to the small village down there, all the trees are in contrast of direction with that eye level. Now if you take harmony, you see harmonizing values. On the left side of the mountain, it's very light tone. On the right side of the mountain, it's a dark tone. And the tone in between, the gray tone, is a harmonizing tone between the light and the dark. And also you see a harmony in line. The horizon line is horizontal. but the lines going up, the roadway, suggested roadway, going up to the top of the mountain where the castle is, are in harmony. They are not parallel and they are not in contrast, they are harmonizing. The principles of alternation, balance, and unity. The principle of alternation refers to grouping. On the left side of your picture, you can see a cluster or a group of trees, such as 3, 2, and then over in the center maybe 1, 1. So it sets up a rhythm of 3, 2, 1, 1. In alternation, we don't like to alternate 1, 1, 1. It becomes monotonous. So we set up a rhythm as they do in music, 2, 1, 1, 2, and that's alternation. Now, as far as balance goes, we all pretty much agree that a picture should be balanced from left to right. If you have an imaginary line running down to the center vertically through your drawing or your picture, then we want the elements on the left side to come close to balancing the elements on the right side. And that pertains to all the elements. And the unity is the bottom line. That holds your picture together. And what unity really is the control of the variety of your elements. The principle of dominance is very subtle here. Here is your dominant, small sailboat. It dominates the picture because of its position in an aesthetic center. Also by isolation and by contrast, the contrast of the color of the sails of yellow to the blue that surrounds it. The principle of balance can be seen in our opening sketch. You can see a balance of line, the elements of line and direction, but also a beginning of a balance of tone. And that's important, tone, and if we use color, color. Now, if I have an imaginary line vertically through my paper here, I want to balance that tone. And if I did that, it would look to me as this was a little bit darker on this side. So then we are continually compensating on each side of an imaginary line, vertical center line, to balance our picture in value. And value and probably shape and color are the most important things to balance. Now, there are several ways of balancing a picture. One way is simply to be having equal value, equal texture, equal color on each side. But there's other ways that I'd like to show you. Another way to balance a picture is what we call the fulcrum method. We set up a fulcrum here, a teeter-totter, or a sawhorse. You've seen them in the park and you've rode on them, where you would get on one side here and maybe you and your friend were not the same size. Maybe your friend was larger and would be seated about here. Now, in order to balance that, if you're smaller, you get out here farther to the edge. And by moving away from the center, you can balance it. And that's the way it is in a picture. If you have an imaginary center and you have a large shape over here in the middle and you want to balance it, you can move a smaller shape out to the edge and it'll have more visual weight as it approaches the edge. Now, this is also true of color. You're balancing shape, you can balance value, and you can balance color that way. If you have a large area of light blue in the center, you can have a smaller area of darker blue out toward the edge or even in here. And this smaller, darker blue will balance the larger, lighter blue. Another way of balancing a picture is by isolation. Now, if you look at this sketch, you'll see a tree over here to the right, very large, a figure over here to the left, very large, but here in the aesthetic center, in isolation, is a small fella. Now, in isolation, he's surrounded here by clear space, and he's very small. That has visual impact, and it will really lead the eye and overpower these large areas on the sides of the picture. Also, as far as dominance goes, the placement of this figure dominates the picture. Even though the figure here is larger and the tree is larger, the placement will dominate it and will become the dominant of the picture. Here's another suggestion you may use in picture design. In locating your center of interest, and here I have selected upper left aesthetic center. And let me get some more work in on this drawing. Then I can make a point. Now that will be the center of interest of my picture. And I'm putting subdominance here, rocks, minor elements out to the side. I'm thinking about balance and other principles of design. And let's add a vessel out here. We may put in some sky, contrast of shape. Here we have a lot of harmony, contrast and harmony, contrast of value and color. Interest added here. So I have my center of interest located. But where do I locate it? Well, first, as I said in the beginning, we located it in an aesthetic center. But here's the important point. When you locate your center of interest, have it unequal distance from the sides and the top and the bottom. You notice? That gives us more interest in a picture. A little bit here, a little bit more here, a little bit more here, and a little bit more here. It keeps your picture from becoming mechanical.
To practice these principles of design, cut out shapes from colored paper. Try creating a picture made up of just these colored shapes and balance the picture from left to right. Try using isolation to emphasize a shape. Try arranging for harmony of line and color. Try moving shapes to create gradation. And try grouping shapes so there's alternation within the frame.
You've had a brief introduction into the principles of design. Now, I don't expect you to memorize everything we've said here, or even understand everything we've said about the principles of design. But you can do some more reading on your own and practice some of the things that I've done here, and through that you'll get a lot better on your own.
The principles of design are how the subjects in your picture are woven together to create a harmonious design. As you draw, keep in mind depth or gradation, repetition, harmony, contrast, and dominance. Knowing about these principles will soon make them tools you can almost use without thinking. Drawing with Paul Ringler is produced by the Agency for Instructional Technology in association with the Oklahoma Educational Television Authority.